Hi everyone. Here we go. Some more on Unit 3. We've talked about some of the, already talked about some of the internal parts of a PC. We talked about that motherboard, processor, memory, random access memory, and we talked about, not yet, but now we're going to talk more about storage. A little review. Storage, where we permanently save stuff. Memory, that's what the processor works directly with. Got the bus and there. So we want to distinguish memory and storage. In a lot of cases, memory is volatile, goes away, storage is supposed to be permanent. But in new devices nowadays, some of the line between those is a little more vague. We talked about bits and bytes, ASCII storage, and word length, the word processor. Remember? Here we're talking about, this looks a little crazy, but you have maybe this. How many bits can we push through? Now, what are we pushing them through? We're either pushing them in the air, in wire with electricity, or fiber with light. Okay? Which is separate from what we're going to talk a lot more about here, is actually how much we can put in memory, how much we can have in memory or on some type of storage. Types of devices, I went through those already. The big difference between here is what's mobile and what tends to sit at a desk or under a desk or whatever, or in some cases what kind of devices make up a large box sitting somewhere. And cluster and grids, and we talked about, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the future, virtualizing. Having one box with lots of machines worked on. Built-in computing devices, I don't think I've talked about that. That would be all those things like in your car. There's a computer that monitors the motor or the engine, how that operates. It monitors like when backup. You have a backup camera that watches, some vision behind you, looking for things inside a car. Gosh, it manages the speed, and how the brakes work. And one that's crucial, airbags. You want those airbags to deploy in time, so if the computer's working on something on the motor and all of a sudden the airbag needs to deploy, you need the resources to go to the airbag. A microwave has where you program it, right? You program it to run a certain time at a certain temperature, and so there is just numerous computing devices nowadays. Numerous. We talked about that previously. We talked about the system unit, and to block those off, we have the processor, which is typically mounted on a circuit board called a motherboard. That processor has high-speed staging areas, and it can only do arithmetic and logic operations and move things around. Okay? It can add, subtract, and decide if something's greater, less than, or equal. And then it can do arithmetic. Add, divide, multiply, subtract, and so forth. Talk about the bus, moves the information around. We can supplement with this. And we talked about the importance of the clock speed and virtual memory, part of the hard drive, acting as memory. New kind of ports all the time, and then computers have power supplies that we plug into the wall, and then it converts it to usually some type of power for the machine itself. This becomes important when we talk about battery life and portable devices. Computer performance. That combination of the clock speed and the amount of memory, it's crucial. Also, the the 64-bit, the word size and the bus size. A 64-bit machine is going to run better than a 32-bit machine, and also depending on what you're doing, a video card could have a big effect, and so forth. Alright, storage. Pretty straightforward. We want you to understand that nowadays when people talk about storage, a lot of times they'll think, I'll draw this for a hard drive. Hard drives have platters in them, and they have these read-write heads that move in and out and write information on the platters. And so that's why you'll start to hear, they'll say it's a platter. Okay? Now a tape, we still have, they look like cassette tapes in which we put the information on a tape. Typically for backup, almost always for backup nowadays, but that information is stored magnetically. You wouldn't want to take a magnet and have it near your tape or near your hard drive. This also affects, like if you have machines that have electric motors in them, okay, big electric motors creating large magnetic fields. What's extremely popular nowadays, and I'll put this here, is this solid state storage. You may have used what was called a flash drive. Sometimes they call them a thumb drive, little thing, USB, plugged into a USB, and you can store information on it, okay, using this solid state storage technology. They're actually making what they call them solid state drives, still pretty new in usage, but they put them in a computer and they actually function in the same way as a hard drive, a platter. They call this optical storage because they use laser light to read and write from it. Okay, they burn spots on the disk, and then this laser can read it. The big advantage here is quantity. They can put a lot on a DVD. But be careful, just because you hear laser light, you think it's fast. Typically, magnetic storage is typically faster to read, to put the information on and off the platters, than it is for an optical disc. But DVDs are still around. I'm not sure how long they'll stay around, but they're still around. Okay, so then you think about location. Okay, where is this being located? So this magnetic platter, that could be in your computer. Okay, so it could be local to the device. It could be right in the device. It could be local and removable. You can take a hard drive, plug it into a USB port on your machine. Okay, so it could be removable, or it could be flash drive. Okay, or it could sit on a local area network. So from your device, you would go to a network computer that has some type of storage. Could be any of the three. You get it? Could be any of the three. And the same thing, could be out in the cloud. Here you would go through the internet. Okay, you would go through the internet to find some storage somewhere. And where? Well, it could be stored in iCloud, could be in iCloud, it could be another one somewheres, Google, Amazon, Dropbox, SkyDrive. There's all kinds of ways and options to do that. All right. To finish up then, I'm not going to spend very much time on these. There's ways to use then internet storage to store stuff via the internet. Mass storage, there are systems set up to store huge amounts of data for analysis, like a company that develops huge amounts of data every day, store that. And storage area network, the college uses these. It's a device set up with huge numbers of hard drives in it, and it's connected directly to your network. So it's designed only for storage. And that's it.